So, welcome students to the class. So, today we are going to learn the topic evolution. So, let's start today. So, what is evolution? So, evolutionary biology is a study of history of life forms on Earth. So, how the Earth, the living organisms on Earth got evolved, how the life form started on Earth. All these studies were done under the um, biological science, which is called the evolutionary biology. So, to understand the changes in the flora and fauna that have occurred over millions of years on Earth, we must have understanding of context of origin of life. That means how life originated in Earth. We have to know that. So, we know that like the present moment we have variety of species of plants, animals, other organisms which are interacting each other, and they have evolved a lot, or instead of evolution the term I would say there have been changes happening to these organisms. Even a single microorganism has undergoing changes. They have been going through different variations in their lifetime. So coming to the origin of life, we want to know how the earth evolved, about the stars, into the universe itself. So evolution means act of unfolding and unrolling, or the evolution is orderly, the change from one form to another. So the present world consists of so many varieties of plethora of organisms. Now the question is how it started. Was it before, like years and millions and years ago again? Like was it the similar the situation, or it got evolved from something, or it changed from something? Okay, so there comes so many theories of origin of life. So early Greek thinkers thought units of life called spores were transferred to different planets, including Earth. So it was a previous thinking, or the previous idea or theories related to the origin of life. And various theories were proposed to explain the origin of life, which included, first one is a theory of special creation. Second one is the theory of panspermia or cosmoid theory. Third is the theory of spontaneous generation, and fourth one is the theory of chemical evolution. So the theory of special creation. There's so many religious literatures talk about the theory of special creation, according to which the God, it is a supernatural power, has created the earth, the light, the sun, plants, and animals. And this theory has suggested three views, which includes, first one is that all living organisms that we see today were created as such. Okay, which include all the plants, animals, all the organisms. The second theory was the diversity of life forms was always the same since the time of creation, and it will remain the same in the future also. And the third theory was Earth is about 4,000 years old. And all these ideas undergo drastic changes during the 19th century, when Charles Darwin showed that the existing life forms share similarities to varying degree among themselves, and also with those life forms that existed millions of years ago. So he observed that there are changes happening. Even in one century, one organism have changed a lot. Even there have been variation to a population happening. Organisms, population has been varied. Genetically, in case of a group of organisms, the number of organisms, the frequency of species have been changing, and this all disproved the earlier theory. So extinctions also took place during a different phase of geological history. So then comes the next theory, that is a theory of panspermia, cosmosoid theory. So that is, some scientists believe that the life has come on Earth from other planets or the outer space. So early Greek philosopher thought the units called spores or pansperms came on Earth along with meteorites, and they might have evolved into present day forms. Okay. Now moving to the next theory, that is a spontaneous generation. This is the most famous theory. So it was believed that the living organisms arose from the decaying matter like straw. That means from non-living substances. That is spontaneous generation. But Louis Pasteur demonstrated that a life can only arise from pre-existing life. That is biogenesis. Whereas the spontaneous generation refers to abiogenesis. Now, he showed that no life arose from the heat-killed yeast broth that was kept in pre-sterilized closed flasks, while new organism arose from the heat-killed yeast that was kept in a flask left open in the air. So actually, he did an experiment with a swan-necked flask, and he proved that spontaneous generation is not possible, or he disproved spontaneous generation. Now, moving to theory of chemical evolution. So this theory was proposed by Oparin and Haldane. So they proposed that first life forms could have come from pre-existing non-living organic molecules like proteins, like biomolecules, RNA, that is nucleic acid, and that formation of life was preceded by chemical evolution. So after that, what happened? Chemical evolution happened. That is formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituents. So we know that proteins and RNA are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. Mainly this CHONP, and some proteins do have sulfur on them as well. So that means the diverse organic, as a result, what will be forming? Organic molecules, organisms, yeah. From organic molecules, organisms are developed. So he proposed that the life form, there is a life form come from the pre-existing non-living organic molecules such as proteins and RNA, and that formation of life was preceded by the chemical evolution. That is a formation of organic molecules from the inorganic constituents. These are the inorganic constituents. From them, the organic molecules were evolved, and later they got evolved to life. Now, the conditions on Earth that favored chemical evolutions were very high temperature, volcanic storms, and reducing atmosphere that contained methane, ammonia, water vapor, etc. So, this theory also said that the conditions on Earth which favored this chemical evolution were the high temperature, the volcanic storms, and reducing the atmosphere that contained what all? Methane, ammonia, and water vapor. This will be reduced in the atmosphere. Now moving to an experimental proof for this chemical evolution of life. This was done by Stanley, Miller and Urey, which created conditions similar to the primitive state. So there is primitive atmosphere in the laboratory using glass apparatus and tubes. So this is a apparatus they use. This is a Miller-Urey experiment, and they created electrical discharge using electrodes in a conical flask. So here you can see they used electrodes in a conical flask containing methane, ammonia, hydrogen and water vapor at 800 degrees Celsius. And then the water vapor contained in the chamber was heated to provide water vapor. And after a week, they observed the formation of amino acids. So it got proved that from inorganic constituents, what developed? The organic molecules got developed, like amino acids, proteins, nucleic acids, etc. So in similar experiments, many other scientists observed the formation of sugar nitrogenous base, the constituent of nucleic acids, lipids, amino acids, and even pigments. So analysis of meteorites also revealed the presence of similar compounds indicating the occurrence of similar processes elsewhere in the space. The chemical evolution of life was more or less accepted. Now, this is an experiment they conducted. Now, moving to the next part, the evidences for evolution. So the evidences for the evolution come from paleontology, embryology, comparative anatomy and morphology, molecular homology and biogeography. So let's move to the terms one by one. First is paleontology. Paleontology is a study of fossils found in rocks to support organic evolution. And the study of fossils from different sedimentary layers indicates the geological time period in which the organisms existed. The life forms varied over time and certain life forms are restricted to certain geological lifespan. And the third thing was new forms of life that have appeared at different times in the history of Earth. Now, moving to embryology. So it is based on the observation of certain common features during embryonic stages of all vertebrates. So Haeckel proposed the biogenetic law which states that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. That means the developmental embryological stages of organisms, that is ontogeny, recapitulate their evolutionary history, that is a phylogeny. And the vertebrate embryos show similarities which are, first is all vertebrate embryos develop a row of gill slits, but they are functional only in fish and not found in any other vertebrates. Second was the notochord, which is present in all vertebrate embryos. But this proposal was disapproved by the Ernest von Baer, and he noted that the embryos never pass through the adult stage of other animals. Okay, this is about the embryology. Now moving to the next part, the comparative anatomy and morphology. So this is the most important part of evolution chapter where you can expect questions in NEET exam. So what is comparative anatomy and morphology shows? It shows both similarities and differences among the present day organisms and those existed long before. That means the relationship between the ancestors and the current living organisms. So let's look into the term homology. So homology is a relationship among organs of different groups of organisms. They show similarity in the basic structure and embryonic development but perform different functions. For example, you can see here the human limbs, cat, horse, bat and dolphin limbs are having somewhat similar structure, but they perform different function, isn't it? Humans, cats, horse, bat and dolphin use it for different purpose. So homology of organs of different organisms indicate their common ancestry. So they have been developed from or originated from a common ancestor. That is, homology is found in the bones of forelimbs of whales, cheetah, birds, amphibians and human. They have a similar basic anatomical structure with the bones, humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals and phalanges. Now, another example is the thorns of bougainvillea and tendrils of cucurbita, which represents homology. So you have to memorize the examples. It is very important for the exam. So this is an example for homologous structures. They have somewhat similar structure but different function. They carry out different function. They have a common ancestor. Now moving to analogy. So analogy is a relationship among organs of different groups of organisms performing the same function, irrespective of the structural or anatomical differences. So here you can see that the birds, the wings of the birds, the wings of the butterflies, the wings of the bat do perform the same function, but they have different structural features or anatomical differences are there. So another examples will be eyes of octopus and those of mammals. As I mentioned, the wings of butterflies and those of birds, the flippers of whales or dolphins, and those of penguins, the tubers of sweet potato and those of potato. So these are the examples of analogous structures. So analogy is a result of convergent evolution. So what is convergent evolution? Where there are anatomically different structures in different groups of organisms evolve towards the same function. So they have no winged common ancestor in this case. So they'll be having no common ancestor here. They are evolved in different pathways, but they do perform same function. Okay. So it is a similar habitat conditions that have selected similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms toward the same function. Now moving to molecular homology. So molecular homology refers to the similarities in the biomolecules of different groups of organisms. That means, as you know, the biomolecules consist of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, that is amino acids, and also the nucleic acids. So the sequence of nucleotides in the nucleic acid and many proteins are similar in apes and humans. So this is a molecular homology. Okay, similarity in the molecular structure of some of the biomolecules. And the biochemical similarities point to the same common ancestry of the diverse organisms as well. So if the molecules in two organisms, for example, the apes and humans, considering them as the example, if they are having a similar DNA structure, some similarity between DNA, that means, what does it mean? It means they are having some common factor or common like associated factor is similar. That means a common ancestry is there for these two organisms. Okay. Now moving to the next term, biogeography. So what is biogeography? Biogeography is the differential geographical distribution of different organisms which indicates a common shared ancestry in that restricted region. That means if two organisms, like considering two organisms, they are having common or shared ancestry and they are but having a differential geographical distribution. They are found in different areas. So habitat isolation has probably restricted these organisms to particular geographical regions on the earth. Suppose in earth, some kind of organisms who have a common ancestor, who share ancestry, they might be present on different regions. One might be on the polar area, one might be on the equatorial area. Okay, that is what the differential geographical distribution of different organisms indicating common shared ancestry in that restricted region. So, yeah, moving to the next term, we have already discussed this term, convergent evolution. The examples are the wings of the birds, butterflies and bat. So wings of butterflies and birds look alike, right? They are not similar, they are anatomically dissimilar or different structure, though they perform similar function. So analogous structures are a result of convergent evolution. So analogous structures are related to convergent evolution and homologous structures are because of divergent evolution. So always remember this point. This is very important. Now the examples include the eyes of octopus and eyes of mammals, the flippers of penguins and dolphins, sweet potato and potato, etc. Now moving to the theory of natural selection. So Darwin made a sea voyage around the world in a snail ship named HMS Beagle, and based on the observations he made during this voyage, he concluded the following statements. So what are they? The first is, the existing living organisms share similarities to varying degrees, not only among themselves, but also with the life forms that existed millions of years ago. For example, the early man in the sense like we could say apes, the early organisms, apes, early man or the apes, they have a similarity or relation with the present humans, isn't it? So there has been a gradual evolution of life forms during different periods of geological history, and there has been extinctions also. So we have faced a lot of extinctions. A greater example will be the dinosaurs, isn't it? So there have been a gradual evolution of life forms during different periods of geological history, and we believe that, like, the rest believe that dinosaurs got evolved to lizards because they have a somewhat similar anatomical features as well. So yeah. Now, third one was any population has built-in variations in characteristics as well. So any populations has built-in variations, in changes because of mutations or because of some reproduction, like changes during mitosis, any kind of reasons it could be. Genetic variations can be caused because of mutations, meiosis, like like crossing over during reproduction. So yeah, so any population has built-in variations in characteristics. And finally, he proposed that the individuals with those characteristics which enable them to survive better in fitness of the individual in the natural conditions would overcome the other who are less adapted under the same natural conditions. So this is simple that considering one particular environment or a region, and if you have two or three particular species who are surviving there for a long period of time, and because of some environmental pressure or some changes, A and B are not able to survive there, whereas C was able to survive better there in that natural condition. They could overcome the others, and as a result, they reproduced, they transferred the genes to the next generation. So they got that adaptation to that particular environment. So finally they got naturally selected. We can say they got selected. That means they could survive there and their population increased there. Whereas A and B population decline in that particular environment or a particular ecosystem. Okay, so here what happened to C is C got naturally selected. Because his characteristics enable him to survive better. And those characteristics were carried to the next generation also. Okay, that is a theory of natural selection. Now moving to the evolution by anthropogenic action. So when we use excess of herbicides, pesticides, it resulted in the selection of resistant varieties. That means the herbicides and pesticides can inhibit the growth of some herbs and some pests, but there will be some resistant varieties which can survive the effect of herbicides and pesticides, isn't it? So this is also true for some microbes against the antibiotics. So right now, a major a problem what we face in the current era is the antibiotic resistance of the bacteria. So we use these antibiotics against the bacteria for a longer period of time, but uh, they undergone variations. They are like they undergone some mutations, we can say. When some mutations happened in these organisms, or they undergone so many variations and they changed, and as a result they got resistant. That means they won't be able to conquered, or they won't be able to be killed by the antibiotics. Antibiotics doesn't have any effect on the resistant bacteria anymore. So this resistant organism cells are appearing in a time scale of months or years, not in centuries. So these are the examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. So evolution is a stochastic process based on the chance events in the nature and chance mutation in the organisms. So we can say that this is an example of natural selection as well. For example, if there are A bacteria and B bacteria, so we had a lot of like strains of A and B. So we added an antibiotic here, So we added some antibiotic, a particular one, for example, penicillin or tetracycline, something like that. And A was susceptible to the particular antibiotic. That means it was sensitive. So this harmed all the A bacteria. The A bacteria got completely vanished, or like removed by the antibiotics, whereas the B got survived in this condition. That means they were resistant to the antibiotics because they had some particular characteristics which held them in that particular environment. Whatever stress they had, they were able to survive there, isn't it? So that is what refers to, and they survived and they just transmitted this character to the next generation as well. Okay. Now, moving to the next part, it is adaptive radiation. This is another important part of evolution, and you can expect questions related to adaptive radiation in exams as well. So, Darwin's finches. This is always related to the example, the Darwin's finches. So he observed the Galapagos Island. So the Galapagos Islands, Darwin observed small black birds later called the Darwin's finches, and he realized that there were many varieties of finches in the same island. And all the varieties he came across evolved on the same island. So from the original seed-eating features, many other forms with altered beak arose, enabling them to become insectivorous and vegetarian finches. And this process of evolution of different species in a given geographical area, starting from a point and usually radiating to other areas of geography or habitats, is called adaptive radiation. So here you can see the example, like the diagram which shows this example of Galapagos finches. So here you can see the parrot beak. So that is, they are having a parrot type of beak. So they are vegetarian tree finches. Now here they are the tree finches. They are having grasping beaks. So they feed on the insect and they are insect eaters. So they have large tree finch, small tree finch, and also woodpecker tree finch. The next one is a warble finch, which have a probing beaks, which also survive on insects as well as the insects. So they are having the probing beaks. They are also called as the warbler finch. And next is the cactus finch, which feed on the cactus. They are having a different kind of beak, actually, the probing kind of beaks. Now we have the small ground finch, medium ground finch, and large ground finch. So they are feeding on the seeds. They are having crushing beaks. They are the ground finches. So here you can see that different varieties, like different types of finches are there, different varieties of finches in the same island. And this process of evolution of different species in a particular point or a particular habitat that is radiating to other areas of geography is called adaptive radiation. Now moving to biological evolution, the essence of Darwinian theory about evolution is natural selection. So natural selection will leads to evolution. Okay. The rate of appearance of new forms is linked to the life cycle or the lifespan. So if a new variety of species is appearing, that means, and the rate of the appearance of that new form is linked to the life cycle or the lifespan. And there must be a genetic basis for getting selected to evolve. It means, as I mentioned, a gene, there is a genetic basis in the sense a particular character feature. That means if an organism is having a particular character, it is because of the DNA it has. It is related to the gene. The gene coding proteins will be causing a particular character or trait in an organism, isn't it? So some organisms are better adapted to survive in an otherwise hostile environment, and the adaptive ability is inherited. That means they carry the gene responsible for that particular characteristic to their future generation. So it has a genetic basis. The fitness is the end result of ability to adapt and get selected by the nature. That means, as we mentioned earlier, that is a survival of the fitness. That means if they are having a particular trait and they're having a particular trait and they are able to survive because of the trait and they adapt to that particular situation, adaptation, and they reproduce and they carry that trait to the next generation. And finally, we can say, yeah, that is a fitness. That is the end result of the ability to adapt and get selected by the nature. That is a natural selection. And finally, we can say they will undergo, there is an evolution happened there. Okay. So branching, descent and natural selection are the two key concepts of Darwinian theory of evolution. Now, moving to the mechanism of evolution. So in the first decade of 20th century, Hugo de Vries, based on his work on evening primrose, brought forth the ideas of mutation. So what is mutation? We know, right? The DNA will be having the sequences, that is the nitrogenous bases A, G, C, T, anything like it could be any kind of sequences based on the gene actually. So mutation is suppose this particular gene and this is the sequence, and instead of C, it got it got like sequenced as AGA, and that is mutation. So this, because of the mutation, there is a larger difference arising in a population. It's a large difference arising suddenly in a population. Now, how de Vries' theory of mutation differs from Darwinian's theory of natural selection? So mutation causes evolution. So the mutation can cause evolution. Whereas the minor variations that Darwin talked about does not. Like, it is a mutation which causes evolution, not the minor variations that Darwin talked about. Now, mutations are the random and directionless. Random in the sense that randomly changes, and it is directionless. It is not like exactly in this particular direction. No. Whereas Darwinian variations are small and directional. Now, evolution for Darwin was gradual, while de Vries believed mutation caused speciation and hence called it saltation, that is single step large mutation. Okay, so these are the theoretical difference between Hugo de Vries' theory of mutation and Darwin's theory of natural selection. Now moving to Hardy-Weinberg principle. So this is this is according to Hardy-Weinberg principle. He uses algebraic expression P plus Q the whole square is equal to P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1 equation. So this is used to find out the to find out the frequency of a particular organism population, the frequency of genes and their alleles. Okay, so in a given population, one can find out the frequency of occurrence of alleles of a gene on a locus, and this frequency is supposed to remain fixed and even remain same through the generations. So the principle states that the allelic frequency in a population are stable and it is constant from generations to generation. So what is a gene pool? Gene pool refers to total genes and their alleles in a population. And he says that it remains constant, that is genetic equilibrium. It will be constant throughout the population, throughout the generations actually. The allele frequency in a populations will be stable and constant from generations to generations. And that means that is an equation here which proves that P plus Q the whole square is equal to 1. This P square plus QPQ plus Q square is equal to 1. Or we can say P plus Q is equal to 1. Okay. So P is the frequency of dominant alleles and Q is the frequency of recessive allele. And the sum of both the alleles is equal to 1. So when frequency is measured, differs from expected values, the difference indicates the extent of evolutionary change. So if we are finding some difference in the expected values and the observed value, so that will be indicating the extent of evolutionary change. Okay. So disturbance in the genetic equilibrium or change of frequency of alleles in a population would then be interrupted as resulting in the evolution. So usually this particular P plus Q is equal to 1. It means from generation to generation, the allele frequency will be stable and constant. But if it changes, that means what has happened there? Evolution. Okay, simple. Now, the 5 factors which are known to affect the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium are gene migration or gene flow, genetic drift, mutation, genetic recombination, and natural selection. So, what is gene migration? So, when migrations of a section of a population to another place occur, the gene frequencies change in the original as well as in the new population. So that means new genes are added to the new population and these are lost from the old population. Okay, so that means if a particular, considering this is a habitat and we are having a lot of population and they got migrated to some other area, some other habitat. Okay, now migration is happening. So yeah, here 4 came here, we removed them. So that means what happened? New genes got added to this new population and some genes got lost from the old population. And now coming to gene flow. So gene migration occurs many times and that is called gene flow. So what happened here? The gene flow happened from a old population to a new population. And this is gene migration as well. When it is occurring many times, it is termed as gene flow. Now, what is genetic drift? So, genetic drift is a change in gene frequency which takes place by chance. So, it is not intentionally happening. By chance, what happened is a change in the gene frequency. Suppose like suddenly a disaster happened at a particular area and they lost the population. Some just consider a flood is happening and some animals or plants got not either migration or we can say they just got transported to different habitat. As a result, we can say there's a genetic drift. There's a change in the gene frequency. Okay. Now, coming to founder effect. So sometimes a change in allele frequency is so different in the new sample of the population that they become a different species. Okay. Sometimes if the change in the allele frequency is so different in the new sample of population that they become a different species, that is founder effect. So the original drifted population becomes a founder species. This will become the founder species and the effect is called the founder effect. Okay. Now, the operation of natural selection on different traits is there are 3 different types of natural selection. First is stabilization, second is directional, and third is disruption. So here we have the diagram actually. So first is stabilization. So in which more individuals acquire mean character value. So that is the stabilizing selection. So there will be like different characteristics, isn't it? So more the frequency of individuals is shown in the x-axis and y-axis showing the variations in the moth melanism. So for example, here is a variation. Moth is being considered. The melanism is being, yeah, the character actually, we could say the character. Okay, so what happened is that the organism which is having an intermediate character is being in a higher frequency way. The frequency of individual is having intermediate, the mean character value is higher. Now coming to directional change, the more individuals acquire value other than the mean character value. So here this is a directional. That means this is a mean, the original population was this. Now because of some, like external factor as a result, like natural selection is happening. So the evolved population is having like the more individuals are having a value or character other than the mean character value. They'll be moving apart, like not an intermediate one. Okay, it would be either an extreme value, we could say. It will be like having For in this case a darker, or we could say it will be a yeah, it will be having either darker or a lighter shade of, I mean, like the color variation in this case. So in case of trait, it will be more like the other than the mean character, they'll be having other characters. So than the mean character value, the other character will be there, and that will be the moral number. Okay. Now going to disruption, more individuals acquire peripheral character value at both ends of the distribution curve. So it was either this end or this end. But coming to disruptive selection, there will be no mean character here. Both extremes will be higher. In this case, the variation in both melanism, the lighter shade will be in a higher frequency, and the darker shade will also be in a higher frequency. In this particular example, I'm saying. Otherwise, if we're considering a particular character, both the end of the curve will be having a higher individual rate. That is disruptive natural selection. Now we will be moving to a brief account of the evolution that is about 2000 million years ago. The first cellular forms of life appeared on Earth, and some cellular form had the ability to release oxygen, and slowly the single cell organism become multicellular. Now by the time 500 million years ago, the invertebrates were formed and active, and then the jawless probably evolved around 350 million years ago, and then seaweeds and a few plants existed and probably around 320 million years ago. Coelacanth, lobe-finned fish discovered in South Africa in 1938, evolved into first amphibians that lived on both land and water. They were ancestors of modern day frogs and salamanders. Now the amphibians evolved into reptiles. Reptiles lay eggs which do not dry up in sun, unlike those of amphibians. So yeah, so this have been explained in this diagram. So this is the the giant ferns, that is a pteridophytes were present, but they fell into the form called deposits slowly. Now some of the reptiles went back to the river to evolve into the fish-like reptiles probably 200 million years ago. The land reptiles were dinosaurs. The biggest dinosaurs are Tyrannosaurus rex was about 20 feet in height and had huge, fearsome dagger-like teeth. About 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs suddenly disappeared from the earth. Some of them evolved into birds. And the first mammals were like shrews, and their fossils were small-sized. The mammals were viviparous and protected their unborn young inside the mother's body. And due to continental drift, crouched mammals of Australia survived because of the lack of competition from any other mammals. So now moving to the human evolution. First one is the Australopithecines. So they probably lived 2 million years ago in the East Africa grasslands. They have brain capacity of 450 to 600 cc. They hunted with stone weapons but essentially ate fruits. Next is the Homo habilis. This is called the first human-like being, that is a hominid. They had a brain capacity of 650 to 800 cc, and they probably did not eat meat. Next comes the Homo erectus. So their fossils were found in Java in 1981, and they probably lived about 1.5 million years ago. They had a brain capacity about 900 cc, and they probably ate meat. Now moving to Homo sapiens, their fossils were found in Near East and Central Asia. They lived between 1 lakh to 40,000 years before. So Neanderthal man had a brain capacity of about 1,400 cc. Then they used hides to protect the body and buried the head. They moved across continents and developed into distinct races. Now moving to the modern man, it is Homo sapiens. So they arose during Ice Age between 75,000 to 10,000 years ago. He spread all over the globe and learned to cultivate plants and domesticate animals. So it is a it is a starting of the humans actually, the modern man. The prehistoric the cave are developed about 18,000 years before, and the agriculture started around 10,000 years back. And human settlements and cultivation started. So this actually shows the outline of the evolution of modern man. So this is our modern man here. So we discussed about Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo neanderthalensis, then the Australopithecus garhi, and yeah, we just discussed about the main five phases of the human evolution. Now let's move to the past paper questions in NEET exam, and this will be like related to the topic evolution. And here we have the question from June 2024, question number 154, zoology. In this question, you have been given two lists, that is list 1 and list 2. In list 1, you have given different terms: gene pool, genetic drift, gene flow, and gene frequency. Actually, we just learned these terms right now. So gene pool, what is gene pool? So we know that this total number of genes and their alleles, isn't it? So that is 4 will be the correct answer. Now genetic drift. So there's a change in gene frequency, and I told that is happening by chance. Okay, so 2 will be the correct answer for genetic drift. Now third, we have gene flow. We already discussed about gene migration and gene flow. That is a transfer of genes into or out of a population. So gene flow is 3. And finally, we have gene frequency that is stable within a generation. As we told, P plus Q is equal to 1, isn't it? So the correct answer is option B, A4, B2, C3, and D1. So moving to next question. So this is related to which topic? Yeah, by this diagram itself, it is clear it is about the Galapagos Island and the Darwin's finches. So this question is related to adaptive radiation. So from this itself, we could choose the answer adaptive radiation. So which evolutionary phenomenon is depicted by the sketch given in the figure? Adaptive radiation, why? Because Darwin finches evolved from a common ancestor into various species with different beak shapes, and each adapted to a specific diet, illustrating adaptive radiation. Now moving to the next options given here, artificial selection, because it involves a human intervention in breeding, not the natural evolution. Now coming to genetic drift, it is a random change in the gene frequency, isn't it? As a change in the gene frequency, ran by chance it is happening, not the development of different traits for adaptation. Option C, convergent evolution. So we just learned it that convergent evolution results into analogous organisms, like analogous structures, and it calls like they are having similar functions, but they are having different structural features, like it involves different species evolving similar traits due to similar environments. So this is incorrect. Now moving to the question number 180, zoology in June 2024. In this question, you have been given two lists, list 1 and list 2. And list 1, you have living fossils, connecting link, vestigial organ, and atavism. So here, living fossils can be connected to Latimeria, because Latimeria is commonly known as coelacanth, which is considered as a living fossil because it has remained relatively unchanged for millions of years and was once thought to be extinct until its rediscovery. So A is connected to 4. Coming to connecting link, we can connect it with Echidna. So Echidna is a connecting link between the reptiles and mammals, because reptiles lay eggs but also possess mammalian features such as fur and milk production. So B will be connected to the third one, Echidna. Now third, we have the vestigial organ. So vestigial organ, we know that we do have several vestigial organs which have lost much of its like original function over evolutionary time, though it may still play a minor role in your body. And here we have the vermiform appendix, which is in vestigial organ. Now last one is the atavism. So it is can be connected to the elongated canine teeth. That is, it refers to reappearance of the ancestral traits such as elongated canine teeth which were present in distant ancestors but are usually absent or reduced in modern humans. So that means here the correct answer will be A4, B3, C2 and D1. Option A is the correct answer. Okay. Now the correct order of the periods in Paleozoic era. So here from the diagram we could correct the answer here. It is Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous and Permian. So that means the correct answer will be option B, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous and Permian. Now moving to the next question. The flippers of penguins and dolphins are example of what? So we know that the flippers of penguins and dolphins are examples of analogous structures. And analogous structures are formed because of what? Convergent evolution. Convergent evolution occurs when unrelated species evolve similar traits independently to adapt to similar environmental challenges. So here both the penguins and dolphins have evolved their bodies and flippers for efficient swimming in aquatic habitats, but their evolutionary origins are different. So the correct answer is option A, convergent evolution. Moving to the next question from May 2024, Zoology 164th question. Which one of the following factor will not affect the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? That is P plus Q the whole square is equal to 1. That means the allelic frequency or the frequency of gene will be stable and constant throughout the generations. Okay, so I think we just learned it, gene migration, genetic recombination, genetic drift, all just affect the Hardy-Weinberg equation. We learned it one by one here. So A, C and D are incorrect. Constant gene pool will be the incorrect answer. So if the gene pool remains constant, it implies no migration, no mutation, selection or genetic drift which is occurring. So this is a key assumption of the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So it does not affect the equilibrium and ensures it is maintained. So option B is the correct answer. Now moving to the next question. Here again you have two lists, and in first list you have the eras Mesozoic, Proterozoic, Cenozoic and Paleozoic. Now we know that Mesozoic era is known as the age of reptiles, and it is characterized by the dominance of reptiles and also the appearance of birds which evolved from the theropod dinosaurs. So we can connect it with the birds and reptiles. Okay. Moving to Proterozoic era, this era is marked by the emergence of lower invertebrates such as sponges and simple multicellular organisms, as well as the first signs of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. So here we can connect it as B, lower invertebrates. Now Cenozoic era, it is called the age of mammals. And this era witnessed the diversification and dominance of mammals along with the evolution of primates and modern ecosystem. So we can connect it with mammals. Now finally, Paleozoic era. It is known for the rise of fish and amphibians. So this era also saw the development of marine and terrestrial ecosystem as well as the first land plants. So the answer will be here D. So here we have the correct answer. A is 3, B is 1, C is 4 and D is 2. So option B is the correct answer. Now moving to the next question. So this question is from May 2024, Zoology, question number 198. So in this question you have been given two statements. Statement 1 and statement 2. First statement says that Gauss competitive exclusion principle states that two closely related species competing for different resources cannot exist indefinitely. This is absolutely incorrect. So because Gauss competitive exclusion principle states that two species competing for the same limited resource cannot coexist indefinitely. It is not that competing for different resources, isn't it? So the statement 1 is incorrect. Moving to the second one, according to the Gauss principle during competition, the inferior will be eliminated, and this may be true if resources are limited. This is absolutely correct. Gauss principle suggests that during competition for a limiting resource, the inferior will be outcompeted or eliminated, and this scenario occurs when the resources are limiting, making the competition intense. So option B is the correct answer. Moving to the next question. This is from the question like May 2023, question number 77, zoology. You have to select the correct group of Australian marsupials exhibiting adaptive radiation. So in the options you have different animals, like different groups of Australian marsupials. From this you could select option C as the correct answer. Bats, spotted cuscus, and flying phalanger, because adaptive radiation describes the evolution of various species in a given geographical area radiating different habitats, and Australian marsupials such as numbat and spotted cuscus exemplify this phenomenon. So option C is the correct answer. Now moving to the next question from July 2022, zoology question number 168. Here it is asked about the natural selection types where more individuals acquire specific character value other than the mean character value. So that means it is not the stabilizing change where the individuals will be more for the mean character value, and it is also random, not random change. It could be either directional or disruptive. So coming to option A, directional natural selection, it results in more individuals acquiring a trait value other than the mean character value. Whereas disruptive selection, there will be like more individuals acquiring peripheral trait values at the both end of the distribution curve. So option A is the correct answer. Option B is incorrect. Moving to the next question. This question is from July 2022 zoology question number 193. The question is, which of the following statement is not true? Okay. So first option is sweet potato and potato is an example for analogy. That is, they are analogous structures. This is true. So option A is an incorrect answer. B, homology indicates common ancestry. This is also true. They have common ancestor. So option B is also an incorrect answer. Option C, flippers of penguins and dolphins are a pair of homologous organs. This is incorrect because they are examples of analogous organs. Analogous organs in the sense they have similar function, but they have different structures because they do not have a common ancestor as well. So homologous structures are having common structure and they do have a common evolutionary like ancestor as well. Whereas analogous structures will be having similar functions and different structures due to convergent evolution. So option C is the correct answer. Option D, analogous structures are a result of convergent evolution. This is also true. So option D is incorrect. And homologous structures are a result of divergent evolution. Okay, so the correct answer is option C. Now moving to, we are done. So by these questions, we have come to the end of the class. So if you have any questions, please you can ask. Now, so this is an important chapter for the preparation of NEET exam. As we have solved so many questions related to the homologous structures, analogous structures, the terms related to natural selection, the examples of analogous and homologous structures, the different eras, the evolution of humans, all are like equally important topics for the NEET exam. So do prepare well for the exam. So thank you.